Good evening. I'd like to reconvene our regular session meeting. Mrs. Troublefield, will you do the roll call, please?
Mrs. Briggs? Here. Mr. Cathell?
Here.
Mrs. Klein?
Here.
Mr. Neal?
Here.
Mr. Peden?
Here.
Mrs. Pryor?
Here.
Mr. Steele?
Here.
Mrs. Taylor?
Here.
Mrs. Westwarner?
Here.
Mrs. Wright?
Here. We do have a quorum. 3.02, I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda for December 16th.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 3.03, if we would all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the presentation of colors.
Forward, march. Ready, step. Center, face. Post, color. Preset, on. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order, on. Center, face. Forward, march.
You may be seated. Three point oh four, student government.
I know I'm not in student government, but I'd like to present our student government president and vice president. So we have Kay Sharp and Jada Harris.
Hello, I'm Kay Sharp, Sussex Central High School Student Government President, and this is Jada Harris Scott, Vice President. We would like to welcome the Indian River School District Board of Education, Superintendent Dr. Owens, Assistant Superintendent Ms. Blanchard, and Business Administrator Ms. Smith back to Sussex Central. Because of the district and community's efforts, we have this beautifully renovated space, our theater. Look how bright the auditorium is. It's really, really nice. We would like to thank Dr. Davis for the school environment, as well as the building administration and all of the faculty and staff. The school environment has been very positive this year, and there's a strong sense of calm. Our students are living up to the Golden Knight Creed, including being responsible, respectful, and resilient. We are having a lot of success with class. Some of our highlights throughout this year have been mainly school events. We have our Academic Achievement Awards, which happened last week, with hundreds of Sussex Central students were honored for perfect attendance, academic achievements, or exemplifying what it means to be a Golden Knight. We would like to thank Dr. Owens for assisting in the well wishes. The Sussex Central High School Future Farmers of America and Agricultural Department were recognized in the FFA publications for their acceptance and welcoming of all students into their programs and events. Sussex Central is a very special place to our hearts. This year's homecoming festivities included game day events and our annual dance, which was very well attended. Fun was had by all, and it was great to see the school spirit in the beginning week. After the success of the homecoming dance, the sophomore class approached the administration and requested to have their own event. We appreciate the administration's approval for our first annual winter formal. The student government also helped with the recent middle school visits. Although the ninth graders will be attending our new castle, they got to hear from administration, student representatives, and from each career pathway. And we had a great presentation by our band, color guard, and our dance crew in the gymnasium. I know they're all very excited to see what our high school has to offer. Our Technology Student Association chapter continues to shine with their active involvement. They are preparing for their upcoming holiday dinner meeting on December 17th, which fosters collaboration and celebrates their achievements. Additionally, TSA members are proudly represented by the school in the local holiday parade, earning praise for their creativity and dedication. Our yearbook program has been revamped and is thriving underneath the new leadership as well as the dedicated staff, who we very heavily appreciate. A recent success includes hosting the school club's Picture Day, which highlighted the diverse extracurricular involvement of our students. The event was well organized and will contribute valuable content for this year's publication. We're looking forward to seeing our pictures. Jada?
With athletics and our extracurriculars, cross country talks about keeping up with their pace. Our girls cross country team won for the first time since the 90s and got third place at conference. The dance department hosted their student choreography showcase on Friday, December 16th, highlighting students' original performance of songs they choose inspired by the Nutcracker. Be sure not to miss any of their future performances. Esports, the chess team placed first place in the Mid-Atlantic Regional Championship. Teams from Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania competed. Marching on the football team, the Sussex Central football team made it to the semifinals. The marching band participated in 3 local Christmas parades in the beginning of December and placed first in their division. The music department held their winter concert on Wednesday, December 11th, bringing festive cheers to those in attendance, with a special narrative of Dickens' A Christmas Carol by our English teacher, Steve Gibbons. The Tri Music Honor Society hosted a benefit concert on Sunday, December 15th at the St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Georgetown. Many students performed along the church members, and all proceeds went to the restoration project of their 1919 pipe organ. The soccer team made it to the quarterfinals. Way to go. On the side, our student government is hosting our blood drive this Thursday to help out the blood drive. Thank you.
We would like to thank everyone for their support, and we are looking forward to an amazing 2025. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. .05 and 3.06, approval of board meeting minutes and approval of the executive session minutes of the November 21st meeting. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 3.07, approval of regular meeting minutes for November the 25th, 2024. A motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 3.08, approval of executive session minutes for November 25th, 2024. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 4.01, recognition.
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. Could you join me at the podium? Good evening. This evening, we'd like to recognize 2 of our schools, Long Neck Elementary and North Georgetown Elementary. I ask that their principals join us on the stage. As they make their way to the stage, Long Neck and North Georgetown Elementary Schools were recently named 2024 Delaware Recognition School Award winners for excellence in serving special populations. They were among 17 Delaware schools recognized either nationally or by our state for the academic progress of their students last year. The Excellence in Serving Special Populations category honors schools where multiple language learners showed exceptional growth toward meeting proficiency on their state's English proficiency test. Long Neck and North Georgetown Elementary were among 7 Delaware schools honored for excellence in serving special populations. Each school will receive an $8,000 award, a certificate, and a banner to hang in their building. They've not received that yet, but I know that's coming from the state. So as superintendent of schools and Mrs. Wright, president of our board, we want to thank both of you and the hard work and dedication of your staff on this tremendous recognition. Please join us.
5.01 is public comment time, and I would read to you that the school board welcomes the opportunity to hear from the public during our public comment session at the beginning and end of each public session. Members of the public speaking as individuals or a member who represents an organization will be allotted up to 3 minutes. As per Board Policy BDDH, in order to comply with the First Amendment, the board will not entertain protracted public comment within favor of or against a staff member. If a speaker makes defamatory statements or invades the privacy rights of a student or employee, the speaker is responsible for such statements and may be held liable. We thank you for adhering to this policy when sharing your public comments.
Thank you. First up this evening, Wendy Mears.
Good evening. I'm Wendy Mears, engineering teacher at Indian River School District, child advocate, and adult child sex abuse survivor. I'm here to express the ongoing harassment and retaliation I've faced since speaking out about my experiences and concerns regarding the ongoing political and institutional corruption in this district. After publicly disclosing the intimidation and harassment I experienced on Dan Gaffney's show, I was subjected to a psychological evaluation, labeled a conspiracy theorist, and asked to leave the school premises. This evaluation ultimately found me to be mentally stable, disproving the district's claims. I want to highlight concerning events that occurred prior to the November 25th public comment session. On that day, I informed the assistant principal that I would be speaking at the upcoming board meeting and had prepared materials for my students in case I was unable to return. That evening, I received numerous calls and voicemails from crisis. I assumed the police might be called to my home to prevent me from speaking out. As I left for the board meeting, 3 police officers arrived at my neighbor's house inquiring about my mental health. Despite these attempts to silence me, I was able to deliver my public comments and subsequently cleared by police. It is disheartening that the principal, who was aware of the situation in my family, did not offer support or even attempt to clarify the situation. She has yet to see me if she was so concerned. And funny thing, I had a state trooper's child at my house for a sleepover. You truly have to find joy in the journey. The district has used various tactics which have involved administrators, colleagues, students, investigators, HR, superintendents, school board members, media, crisis teams, and police to discredit and silence me. I urge the school board to consider why they would allow their employees to be subjected to such harassment. I forgive those who have wronged me, but I believe that working together, we can use this experience for positive change. I ask that you consider how you can help address these issues. Things that have happened to me and the others in this district are deeply concerning. I'm not seeking to sue the district. I have already spent $12K to protect myself. I remain here because I believe it's God's will. I urge you this Christmas to seek the greatest gift of all, and if you find that gift, I ask you to consider how you can help create positive change. Remember those who question or challenge the prevailing narrative. are not necessarily crazy. They may be the ones trying to explain the truth. I implore you to consider the validity of my claims. We are supposed to be salt and light in this world. I know for a fact going through all of this, I'm a changed person. Faith helps you endure fiery trials and overcome challenges. Our faith is purified as gold through the fire. And if not, just like paper, you will be burned. I guarantee all of you, nothing in this journey will be wasted as he uses our testimonies. I thank the district for not harassing me anymore. I pray and hope you all find the real meaning in this holiday season. We are to use our gifts he gives us and submit to him because his gift he gave us is the greatest gift of all and nothing we could ever sacrifice. If I could ask for a closed executive session with the board, that would be a blessing. Please know, those of us that choose to walk with him by our side are also different and can be marked as weirdos. But my retirement plan is my
10
salvation.
seconds.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you.
New business, 6 point.
Yeah, one more.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Hattier. I'm sorry.
All right, I'm easy to forget. All right, well, it's been a long time since I've been at this end of a board meeting. Last time was 2002, and I must say I'm very happy to see you guys here and me at this end. I've had the honor to be on the board for 22 years, and one of the results of not serving is that I did get my right to free speech back. I had to keep my thoughts about God and service to myself, and I was not allowed to discuss it in open forum or as a member of this board. But nevertheless, before each meeting, I always ask the good Lord for guidance on what to do with difficult questions, and though some may find it hard to believe, to leave my own ego behind and thoughts and do what was best for the kids in the district as a whole. Today, however, as a free person, I have the right to ask God's blessing on this group and ask that the good Lord give you all the guidance and hubris, especially the hubris, that you need to make the best decisions for our kids and ultimately for our nation. George Washington once said, "Religion and morality are the essential pillars of a good society," and neither are currently taught in our schools. Over the years, several things have become obvious vis-a-vis education. All right, the biggest for me is that college is not for everyone, nor should it be the goal of this district to send everyone to college. I received an article from someone in the admin here, thank you very much, I hope you passed it on, that needs to be read by everyone. It makes a very strong, clear case for increasing so-called blue-collar education. College is a waste of money for many, many people. It's a waste of our money to make every kid take an SAT also. That cost us thousands. And I have a question for this board. How many of you use Algebra 2 trig every day? Once a week? Ever? And yet it's required. It's a waste of money. We should be teaching financial things. This district, along with many others, says we don't have room to teach financial decisions. Or do we want our kids to be captives to debt for the rest of their lives? The rule of 72 should be known by everybody. Of the 4 Eagle candidates in our scout troop 10 years ago, my son being one of them, the only kid who owns his own house, debt-free, is a diesel mechanic. The others are hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Is that what we want for our kids? This district has done well over the years pioneering things the state says we should not be doing. Constables were the first. So why not start pushing for employability from high school and onwards and stop making college the main goal for all? Forget the experts at DOE. They don't know their rumps from a hole in the ground. Alrighty, we did it once, you guys can do it again. You ever notice how they eliminated the home ec class, and with all the diet foods, how thin Americans are now? Neither have I. Bring home ec back. Teach kids the value of the money in cooking their own foods as opposed to going to McDonald's. Thank you, madam. This district set the standard against state
10
advice
seconds,
for
Dr.
constables as they are now known. Do the right thing, bring back more classes that are useful and less that people will never use. God bless you all. Thank you for what you do, and have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
No one else? Okay. New business, 6.01, school choice applications for 25-26 school year. Mr. Lewis?
Good evening, everyone. On your board docs this evening, you will see a total of 4 school choice applications. We are asking to accept all 4 of those applications.
Anybody have any questions, concerns, comments? I would entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. 6.02, Lord Baltimore Elementary Festival of Trees donation.
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. I ask that we table this item for next month. They would like to meet at the southern end, so at our next board meeting.
Okay. 6.03, Georgetown Middle School Agility Performance Unlimited donation.
Thank you. We recently received a donation of $10,000 from Denai Dennis Sutton of Agility and Performance Unlimited to 8th grade students at Georgetown Middle School for a field trip to the Holocaust Museum and the National Museum of African American History in Washington, D.C. And as per policy, we would ask for board action on that donation.
I would entertain a motion to accept the donation.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 6.04, kindergarten, third grade ratios.
Mrs. Dorman, if you could provide us with an update on the ratios. Annually, we need to evaluate the class size ratios within our schools, and if there are any that are over particular ratios, we must ask for board approval and consideration. Mrs. Dorman.
Good evening. So we have one elementary school that did not meet the requirement for the class size waiver, and that's Long Neck Elementary. And it was in a third grade classroom where they have 24 students, and there is a support pushed in. It's a paraprofessional, but it's not enough time out of the day to meet the requirement. I did talk to Mrs. Wilson, principal of Long Neck, who has worked with the teacher, and the teacher does not want additional support pushed in. So we had to post, and we would need board approval for this waiver for Long Neck.
Ms. Dorman,
Yes.
question. The ratios for K3 is still 22-1?
Yes.
And if they have above 22 kids, then they have to have somebody push in to support, correct?
Yes, so that we don't have to have the waiver. So in almost all of our other elementary schools, there were classrooms that would have been over the number, but they either push in additional teacher support or para support. And so principals do a calculation of how many minutes out of that day that additional support is pushed in, and that can help you to meet the waiver requirements.
Now, the support that's pushed in means they're in the classroom at the time, is that correct?
Correct, for a certain amount of time, yes.
So what are you
So what are we
requesting of us
looking-
again?
I'm sorry.
What are you requesting?
So Long Neck is the only school that did not meet the requirement, and so we have to vote to approve that waiver. The waiver is basically saying that you're accepting the fact and you're okay with Long Neck being over capacity in one classroom. The rest met the requirement there.
And what was the figure?
So at Long Neck, the one third grade classroom, the ratio is supposed to be 22, and they have 24 students.
And the teacher does not want extra?
Correct. They pushed in for a small portion, a para, but it still did not meet the requirement because the minutes are not enough. But when the principal talked to the teacher, she does not want additional support.
Does anybody verify to make sure that these ratios are correct before we submit them?
Well, I work with the principals especially our newer ones. So I worked with them to support, and oftentimes, like when I look at the list, we can see if there's 2 teachers that are listed in team classrooms, then we make that correction. Some of our principals are experienced, so they were comfortable completing it themselves. And so that's how we proceeded. They completed it themselves, which is what we've done in the past as well. Any other questions?
Dr. Owens, when's the approval for this have to take place? Does it have to be this month?
Mrs. Dorman is shaking her head yes.
Yes.
Typically, it's this month, yes.
There's a process that has to be completed with DOE. Whatever your vote is tonight, then I will complete that process and it asks if the board has approved the waiver.
Isn't part of the process also something goes home to parents?
We had to post it on the door of the school, so it has been posted there for 10 days.
So is there a reason why the teacher does not want extra support?
I can have Mrs. Wilson come up front, but when I talked to Mrs. Wilson, it was that the teacher has great classroom management. She feels like she doesn't need the additional support and that she can meet the needs of the students on her own. She's giving me a thumbs up.
Is it a veteran teacher?
She's fairly new. This is her first year. First year. Was she a year-long intern? She was a year-long intern. So she
And
had a
what
year's
grade?
worth of experience with us prior to taking on her own classroom.
And what grade?
What grade was she when she was?
No, now.
Oh, she's in third grade.
So tonight, we're voting on one school,
Correct.
just
because that's
Long
the
Neck,
one.
and that's the only vote, right?
Because, yes, because that's the only school we had to provide a waiver for.
So my concern is I want the students to get what they need. So at this point, are the records showing, the data showing that these kids are flourishing in the classroom?
So I think Mrs. Wilson would have to come up and speak to that since it's her building.
And yes, that's a valid concern. I have every confidence. I was just in the classroom today, and though she is a new teacher, she's a very good teacher and very thoughtful in the way she plans lessons and delivers them. And the kids in her class, the classroom management is stellar. And they're always on task, they're always engaged. I should be really speaking to all of you, but they are always engaged, and the data in her classroom is wonderful. She doesn't have maybe one or two students that have come before the SPST, the Student Problem-Solving Team, and we've been able to support her in every step of the way through that, and I'm pleased with the outcomes for the students in her class.
So it sounds like your professional opinion is that
Yes.
we're fine with the waiver.
Yes. Any other questions?
Thank you for sharing that.
And Ms. Storman, you will be going around to check just to make sure these ratios were done correctly.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? I entertain a motion for the waiver.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
No?
Opposed?
Opposed.
Mrs. Troublefield, will you poll the board, please?
Mrs. Briggs?
Yes.
Mr. Cathell?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Peden?
Yes.
Mrs. Pryor?
Opposed.
Mr. Steele?
Opposed?
Mrs. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Warner?
Yes.
Mrs. Wright?
Yes.
That is 8 yes, 2 noes, and 0 abstentions.
It passes by majority vote. 6.05, the date and content of the referendum.
Yes, we've had considerable discussion around referendum, both through committee and here this evening. Happy to answer any questions. Last board meeting, we discussed a potential date. I have heard from some board members since that meeting that we may need a special board meeting with more additional information that we can provide, maybe in a workshop setting. So we're happy to look at a date in early January upon our return after the first of the year, as we do need to, if we are going to consider a referendum in March, we need to solidify a date and the content of that referendum in totality next month. So if we do not act this evening, I would ask that we do collectively look for a date in early January where we can come together as a collective board and discuss again.
I would entertain a motion to table it tonight and then come up with a date and the specifications of the referendum at our special board meeting.
So,
We
second.
have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is unanimous. Six point oh six, substitute rates. Which one? Mrs. Bunning, Mrs. Smith.
Attached in board docs are the proposed increases to the substitute rates starting January 1st. January 1st is the last time in the current legislation that the minimum wage will go up, which in turn sends the Class A, B, and C teacher substitute rates up. So with that, we have looked at all of the rates and applied those increases to our daily rates, our long-term rates, our retired rates, retired long-term hourly rates, or long-term rates, retired long-term rates, I'm sorry, for all of our groups. So we are looking for that tonight.
Okay, any questions? Comments? I'd entertain a motion to accept these substitute rates.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. 6.07, Sussex Central High School boys lacrosse uniforms.
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. Attached in board docs are the uniforms in question. We did have some questions with regard to the shorts at a previous board meeting. The jerseys and shorts do match our color scheme and do indeed have the American flag. And we would ask for action this evening.
I would entertain a motion for the boys lacrosse uniforms.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 6.08, Sussex Central High School boys basketball alternate date and uniform.
Yes, again, attached in board docs, this is a uniform that was proposed by our Army National Guard. It is an alternate color from our typical color scheme, as you will see in board docs. This was discussed during our recent committee meeting, so we bring it before you tonight for the approval of not only the uniform itself, as we have looked at military appreciation uniforms in the past, as you know, with our football teams. We also want to ask for the actual date when this would be worn, and it's just one date for this particular uniform, and that would be January 21st.
Any questions, concerns, or comments? I'd entertain a motion to accept this 6.08.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 6.09, Sussex Central High School boys basketball alternate uniform dates.
Thank you. So 6.09, 610, and 611 are all in reference to uniforms that have been previously approved by the board as an alternate uniform. They are still in existence, and we ask that these schools bring the dates back on which they would like these uniforms worn. So 6.09 is the boys basketball alternate uniform, and they are asking for the date on 12/28, 1/8, and 2/6 for that alternate uniform. Let me go through all three? Yes. 610 is Sussex Central High School's baseball alternate uniform, and they are asking for 3/29, 4/12, and 5/6. And finally, Indian River High School's boys basketball alternate uniform on 12/26 and 1/10. We would ask for board consideration for each of those this evening.
Any questions? I'd entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 6.12, Sussex Central High School Field Hockey Bermuda Grass.
Thank you. As Mr. Dooley makes his way to the podium, we have had multiple discussions regarding alternates, and he's going to go through the Bermuda grass alternate, but we thought it appropriate to bring not only to the committee, but to the full board. We had considerable discussion in the past when we added Bermuda Field. So while this is in the threshold of our approval, we certainly want to get the complete board's opinion on this prior to moving forward. So, Mr. Dooley, thank you.
Good evening. There's a proposal for the Sussex Central High School project to install Bermuda grass on one of the new high school athletics fields, which would be proposed for use by the high school field hockey program. The location of this field is shown in your board docs. This proposal would be the only field to be changed from the currently approved Earn Sports Mix grass type. The change order would be for approximately $5,000, and any approved change order would come before committee and the board in January as a notification item. However, it was decided at the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting to bring the subject before the board tonight for consideration. Note that discussions at committee included the acknowledgement of this being a highly debated topic in the past, the challenges with sharing of athletics fields by the Sussex Central High School and Sussex Central Middle School, the playing surface quality of Bermuda grass fields for certain sports, the seasonal growth patterns of warm versus cool grass types, and maintenance costs associated with Bermuda grass fields versus the sports mix. We are seeking a decision from the board tonight on this item.
I did want to provide a little clarity because we had some good discussion at the committee meeting, and we had asked who would play on the current Bermuda field hockey field, which is over by the tennis courts now. We thought that would be available to the middle school. That is not the case. That some of those fields back by the tennis courts would still be used by the high school. And when I talked to Dr. Davis this afternoon, he indicated soccer would likely be on that field and the field adjacent to them. So one Bermuda field and then the field beside. Field hockey would have the Bermuda field up front, and football would play on the two remaining fields. You see it in your illustration there on board docs, and it is to keep those teams together at those locations. So that is, I just wanted to provide that clarity before we even considered how we would move forward. Through our discussions in the construction meetings, there is a sports mix that's used for these fields now, which is quite nice. So again, that would be the alternate if Bermuda was not considered here this evening. And we would handle that just as well.
Questions?
So are all of the practice fields planned and budgeted to be irrigated already?
Yes.
Okay. So that's not an additional expense to maintain the Bermuda?
Correct.
And the current field hockey team currently uses a Bermuda field. That's my understanding.
Correct. The existing Bermuda field that's in the rear of the high school.
Right.
Yes.
And this new field is the field that the high school will be using moving forward.
Correct.
The new field would also have an increase in maintenance due to the type of grass and turf compared to the sports athletic mix, correct?
Correct.
What is the utilization rate that is a concern that would drive this to be Bermuda? Because of the added middle and high school field hockey teams requiring the space? Or is it just a nicety?
It is, the sharing of the field was something that they had spoken to, I understand, quite in the past as well. The middle school and the high school sharing the fields. So, yes, they had expressed that.
So the initial cost is $5,000. And then sustainability of the field, maintenance. Are we talking high dollar to maintain Bermuda grass?
using the equipment that they have now, they would have to be mowing that field twice a week, 3 times a week, as opposed to just once a week. So then there's fuel involved in that, and then the wear and tear on the mower. They do not have a reel mower, REEL, like on golf greens. Those are called reel mowers, so they do not have that at the high school. That's not currently in the project. A lot of schools that have Bermuda grass have reel mowers, so that's not something that's been discussed currently. They make out fine with a zero-turn mower. I think that the fields at the existing high school look beautiful, so there's debate whether you need a reel mower or not, and I think the evidence shows that you don't, which is what our grass expert says as well.
Okay, so 6.12 says the field hockey for Bermuda grass. I would entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
Mrs. Troublefield, will you pull the board?
Mrs. Briggs?
Yes.
Mr. Cathell?
No.
Mrs. Klein?
No.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Peden?
Yes.
Mrs. Pryor?
No.
Mr. Steele?
No.
Mrs. Taylor?
No.
Mrs. Warner?
No.
Mrs. Wright?
No.
That would be 3 yes and 7 no and 0 abstentions.
Okay, so it fails by a majority. Then does that mean at that point in time we go with the sports grass?
That's correct, yes.
6.13, Indian River High School culinary outdoor equipment storage.
This proposal has attachments found in your board docs. We are seeking board approval for an item reviewed by the Buildings and Grounds Committee to install a roofed structure to be attached to the side of the building in close proximity to the indoor culinary classroom. The Indian River High School CTE program would pay for the materials, and the school's CTE construction program would perform the work, which I would add was also designed by them. The design is of sufficient quality to withstand the weather and meet building codes. I've also inquired with the state and determined that minor cap funds can be used to provide a fence around this area. We are seeking board approval on this item to move forward.
Any questions, concerns, comments?
Is this for the structure and the fence that we're voting on tonight? Or just the structure?
Just the structure, but we could do that under minor cap. That's like below the thresholds for requiring 3 bids and formal bids.
It was a great discussion. I would like to add that the committee meeting for all the activity that's going on under the culinary arts program for Indian River now, it's really taken off. It is unfortunate that the CN did not get approved by the state to further the program, but I give them credit for thinking outside of the box and still being able to incorporate this program in their daily activities. So I would entertain a motion at this time to accept the request.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 6.14, Georgetown Middle School Snack Program.
This proposal also has attachments found in your board docs. We are seeking board approval for an item reviewed by the Buildings and Grounds Committee to install outdoor gardens in a few exterior locations on the school campus as illustrated on the location drawing. The scope includes a pollinator garden, an herb garden, and a crop garden, along with the maintaining of a wetland and wildflower area adjacent to the crop garden. Costs will be paid for by the SNAC program with some supplemental funds through grants coordinated by the SNAC program and the school. We are seeking approval from the board to move forward.
Any questions, concerns, or comments? I would entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 6.15, Sussex Central High School change order notifications.
There are only 2 change orders this month for the Sussex Central High School Major Capital Improvements Project. Both of these change orders have been presented before the Buildings and Grounds Committee, and both are being presented as board notifications as they are below the dollar amounts outlined under the board's procedures for change order approval thresholds. Mr. Bob Blyman with Richard Y. Johnson Construction is here to review these and to respond to any questions you might have. Mr. Blyman?
Good evening, everyone. Both these change orders tonight in front of you, let me see, it is B2 concrete work and another one for B2 concrete work. Both these have to deal with the front entrance. Back in the beginning when the front entrance was redone due to a miss, these are the last 2 remaining items on that.
Any questions, concerns, or comments? Would entertain a motion to accept these change orders.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Old business, 7.01, major capital planning.
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. As you have seen, the front of the Sussex Central High School's, the cast stonework is all complete at this time. The grading and concrete work continues on various areas of the site. The metal panel installation continues in the classroom wing. Painting continues in the classroom wing as well. The installation of the gym's cow wall window system has been completed. Mechanical, electrical, and ductwork continues in many of our areas. Drywall installation on all floors should be completed by the end of this month. Heating equipment startup continues in several of the areas. The bulk furniture purchase order is being sent to the furniture vendor now. The architects, RYJ, and the district continue to collaborate on exterior and interior sign packaging. Our executive group continues to meet monthly with RYJ to explore cost-saving, construction alternates, and project obstacles. Our next meeting and building tour will take place this Wednesday at 10:30. The MOVE Committee met on December 5th. A state contract moving vendor was in attendance. Discussion included a review of summer schedule rough draft, athletics and band activity impacts, the B-wing renovation, and scheduling moving for the high school and middle school offices at the outset of the summer. The MOVE Committee will meet again in January. That completes my update.
Thank you. 7.02, Howard T. Ennis.
Yes, both the contractor and the architect are working on final commissioning and the closeout paperwork at this time.
Okay. 7.03, GW Carver consent update. Dr. Winstead.
Good evening. The update, the slide that's presented is that we will be sharing an update at the end of the quarter for the consent order of the students who were formerly at Carver, and there is a community advisory board meeting in March. That's our next meeting at Howard T. Ennis at 4 o'clock, and we continue to review the district plans for the disproportionality of graduation rate and discipline. Any questions?
Thank you. Committee reports, 8.01, Buildings and Grounds. Mr. Steele.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Dr. Owens has already discussed the major capital, the Howard T. Ennis. They were discussed at the committee meeting. We also had the opportunity to hear from Mr. DiGirolamo about the work order report. The last 30 days, 989 tickets were opened, 84 closed, and we currently have 49 tickets active in our system. Dr. Owens reported to the committee the last report of the Futures Committee, where they discussed middle school feeder boundaries for Georgetown Middle and the future Sussex Central Middle School, with the focus being on reducing overcrowding in these middle schools. Now there should be adequate space at the new Sussex Central Middle School. Considerations given minimizing impacts on the affected communities, and also how to communicate this out to the public to encourage collaborative dialogue on this subject. And they agreed that they need to consider elementary feeder boundaries for these schools as well. The committees will continue to work along with the Building and Grounds Committee to monitor the process and the progress that we have once we finish the high school next door. And the committee will also work very closely with the MOVE Committee. I think Joe is working on that. And they are planning to move so that there will be a seamless move into the new Sussex Central High School, followed by hopefully a seamless move from the middle school to the new Sussex Central Middle School. Under new business, we talked about the culinary kitchen. Along with Mrs. Wright, I'd like to say, that program has sort of taken off and has been a very good program for Indian River. And we, a couple minutes ago, voted to approve the outdoor kitchen. Snack program, we had a presentation by the principal of Georgetown Middle, Dr. Carter, and one of the folks working along with him, Sandra Furtado, I believe is her name, and they explained to us the process of the snack program. And I think, again, Sussex Central having a strong ag program, I think that that's going to be a great feed into the high school from the middle school by adding this program. The meeting adjourned 5:37. The next meeting will be 5 o'clock on January 13th, and I hope to see everybody there.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. 8.02, Comprehensive School Safety, Mr. Caffell.
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. So we wanted to provide everyone with just a brief update on the weapons detection systems, and I'm going to ask Mr. Lewis to come up to the podium and do that presentation. Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Cathell. Again, as you well know, we have been using the weapon detection systems at our high school football games, very successful. One thing that I did see, we did not see any kind of pushback from the public whatsoever. It takes a little bit of time to get everybody in, but we had many people thank us for what we were doing. I want to thank our constables who are monitoring those detection systems as the fans and our visitors are coming through those items without any problems. We have not had any issues as far as detecting any kind of weapons. We're now moving to the winter season at our basketball games. We're going to be monitoring the boys' varsity basketball games throughout the season. We've already started that. We have a unit at Indian River High School and another unit here at Sussex Central High School. Also want to thank our building principals, Mr. Williams and Dr. Davis, for supplying some additional staff to help monitor those weapon detection systems. As you can imagine, we have quite a few people who pass through those systems, especially at our football games. So are there any questions?
One question. We monitor the football games and boys basketball. Wrestling is also well attended. Why are we not doing?
I'm going to defer that, if you don't mind, to Mrs. Blandard and Dr. Owens, and they can probably answer that better than I can.
I'll start. So each time, there's considerable amount of additional staff. So we wanted to start with the basketball games, get a system in place. We're paying additional constables to be here and game staff. So our hope is to be able to move, if we don't have a basketball game, to look at wrestling as well. Basketball was our starting point for winter.
Any other questions?
Mr. Lewis, thank you again for spearheading that project to get us to this point. And from the board, I wanted to thank all the extra staff that's stepped up to make that work. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, and I think these are working much better than we actually expected. We were having little issues in the beginning at our football games for the outdoor event. We never used them before, but we found that even if it was a windy night, we were having little issues because they would activate because, these things are 6 foot tall, and as soon as they wobble a little bit, they would activate. But we were able to get some additional weight to put down on the base of them so they would not activate due to wind. Now we're inside, so it's working much better. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all, Mrs. Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Caffell. 8.03, Finance, Mr. Peden.
Yes, we had already discussed replacements of Sussex Central boys lacrosse team uniforms. We've already discussed special uniforms request for Sussex Central boys basketball team. Dr. Owens, did you want me to mention the Lord Baltimore donation or defer those comments?
We're going to table that until next month. Thank you.
We've already discussed Georgetown Middle School, a $10,000 donation. We've already discussed the proposed substitute rates. Mrs. Smith presented the request for student activity funding from the fall 2024 meeting that was held in mid-November. The requests were reviewed and recommended by the committee total $50,454. However, prior to the Finance Committee meeting, the robotics team indicated they have less teams to register and can decrease their request by $1,000. The recommended total funding request is now $49,454. Mrs. Smith is going to talk about the current expense referendum. The referendum will fund operating needs, the district including retention and recruitment of staff, increased operating costs, new Sussex Central High School operating costs, technology purchases and replacements, new elementary school needs, student activities funds, and to remove capitalization tax. We believe we're going to meet in early January to discuss this in more detail. Mrs. Smith presented the final 2025 budgets for Indian River School District and Howard T. Ennis. Final budgets were revised based on final unit count numbers, incorporating the give back funds, expected salary costs, and spending trends so far this fiscal year. The district budget reserve fund supplement is being increased by $3.4 million. The final budget total, $239.6 million for the district and $20.9 million for Howard T. Ennis. Mrs. Smith presented the fiscal year 2025 alternative give back. The district is required to give back a little more than $1.7 million, and Howard T. Ennis is required to give back just over $248,000. For the district, we will be giving back unfilled positions totaling $1.7 million. The remaining approximate $10,000 will come from child safety awareness funds. The give back for Howard T. Ennis will come from state operational funds. The give back plans will be taken to the board for action. And then Ms. Smith reviewed November 30th financial reports, and she will discuss that later this evening. And that's all I had.
Thank you. 8.04 curriculum, Mr. Neal.
No report tonight.
8.05 DSBA Board of Directors, Mrs. Pryor.
We had no meeting. Our next meeting is January 8th.
8.06 DSBA Legislative, Mrs. Briggs.
No report. We haven't met.
8.07 Special Education Task Force, Mr. Neal.
No report.
8.08 Policy, Mrs. Taylor.
Okay. We met on December 9th at 4 p.m. The minutes were approved. There were two policies that were up for second readings, and these will need to go before the board, Mrs. Wright, this evening for approval. EBC, Emergency Responses, there were really no additional changes. J, Athletic Policy, there were no additional changes. And then there were 8 policies that were under review. We discussed those, a lot of healthy discussion that evening. BDDG, Digital Recording, Review Only. ECA, Security Camera System Policy. We changed his and her to their in the draft revision, and we will proceed with the first reading. GCBD, Professional Leave and Absences, there were no recommended changes to draft revision, and we'll proceed with the first reading. GCBE, Professional Staff Vacation and Holidays, that was a review only. GDA, Support Staff Positions, Again, we changed his and her to their in the draft revision, and will proceed with the first reading. GDN, evaluation of support staff. Addition to draft, we added support staff is defined as any employee who is not evaluated through the state system, and will proceed with the first reading. IGDF, student fundraising, that was a review only. The last policy under review, IGDJ, band and interscholastic athletic uniforms. Indian River High School principal, Mr. Williams, presented proposed dates for the basketball team to wear the previously approved alternative black uniform. Sussex Central High School principal, Dr. Davis, presented proposed dates for the basketball and baseball teams to wear the previous approved alternative black uniforms that we approved this evening. This policy will be revisited at the January committee. I want to say a special thank you to Dr. Davis and Mr. Williams for sharing their uniforms and coming responsibly with their dates. So our next meeting will be on January 13th, 2025, beginning at 4 p.m.
Thank you, Mrs. Taylor. Now I would entertain a motion to accept the second readings policies as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 8.09, IREA representative.
Good evening. Blair Catlin Brown, school social worker at SDSA and IREA Vice President for Teachers. So I don't forget, I put it at the top. Just letting you know, tomorrow, I'm very excited to be speaking at a public comment for County Council. I'm joining Christy Wimmer from Cape Henlopen Education Association to talk on the VSAs and impact fees, just trying to keep that topic alive as the council transitions over, because I think we could all use the money, and we want to keep that topic alive and just be out there vocal about it. So I'm joining her, so I'm excited about that. We look forward to you guys picking a date for the referendum. We are ready. We want to get out there. We want to keep pushing it for you guys, so we hope that we'll have a date in mind in January so we can get out there and get that going. Just piggybacking on tonight's conversation on classroom waivers, I love that there was more conversation than I've seen in the past. Some great questions were asked. I would love if we could loop in some more educator voice into it, maybe ask those questions directly to educators, maybe an executive session. It's just some feedback we get that these big conversations are made, and people would love to be able to have their voice heard. So again, I love the conversation. Let's keep it going. Bringing more educator voice, I spoke to some of the people who are directly impacted by the tabled hires last month, especially of paraprofessionals, and I believe it's back on the agenda tonight. The message I really got was, this is urgent. Like, they need people yesterday. So we understand the desire to table things, to get more information, but every day counts. So we're hoping you'll take a vote on it tonight. Even if these are truly temporary positions, having a successful remainder of this year is key. So that was the message that they asked me to bring forth, that every single day matters for safety, for student learning, for staff morale. So we hope we can move forward on that vote tonight. Speaking of votes, we have a few people here, some members that joined us and some more people online, because I asked people to join us tonight to really let ourselves be seen, because you guys are voting on 3 contracts tonight. For the teachers and the secretaries who've already voted, and the paras will vote later. We really felt like we had a successful negotiation process. We really felt like we had respectful conversation that went both ways, a true give and take, that resulted in language that met a lot of our needs while also respecting the district's needs and taking into respect the district's financial constraints, and that most of it's hinging on the referendum. So we really hope that tonight there can be a vote, because we need this. We've been doing this for months, so we're ready, and we hope you guys are ready, because we really want to move forward with this, because we think we all did great work, and we want to say yes to it and ratify it tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Superintendent's report 9.01 monthly activities.
Thank you, and board docs are my monthly activities. I do want to highlight a couple areas here. I was able to attend the Delaware Educational Support Professional of the Year ceremony in Dover Miss Allison Wright, paraprofessional of Indian River High School, was recognized as our district winner, as the board knows, along with representatives from all the districts across the state. So very proud to be with Allison as she and the other ed professionals of the year were recognized. Also, I was able to attend on consecutive days the state championship games for Indian River High School's unified flag football team and the varsity football team, both of which took home the state championship. So two amazing games, very exciting, and great to see our two teams there represent us so well. So congratulations to them. And finally, I was able to, just last week, attend the Sussex Central High School quarterly awards ceremony. Many students were recognized from that quarterly basis for attendance and their academic honors. So thank you for putting that on for our students there at Sussex Central. And again, the remainder of my activities there are in board docs. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Owens. Financial reports, 10.01, financial summaries for the month ending November 30th.
Yes, in board docs are the reports ending November 30th, 2024. We were 42% of the way through the fiscal year. We'd received 93% of total budgeted revenue, 93% of budgeted discretionary revenue, 96% of budgeted local tax revenue. We received $177,000 in interest in November. We've spent 38% of total budgeted expenses, 45% of total discretionary expenses, 32% of our tuition-funded classroom expenses, and 46% of budgeted expenses for Howard T. Ennis. Those are all based off of the preliminary budget, as the final budget is on the agenda for later.
I'd entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 10.02, detailed information for month ending November 30th, 2024.
For that report, our student activity funding balance is approximately $238,000. We have $10.5 million in federal funds available and are holding for $1.4 million in student funds and internal accounts and donations.
Any questions? I'd entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 10.03, major capital improvements for month ending November 30th, 2024.
In November, we paid $3.7 million out.
Any questions? I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 10.04, minor cap improvements for month ending November 30th, 2024.
In November, we received our fiscal year 25 allocation of minor capital improvement funds. So we have spent, for the three allocations available, $4.7 million spent and encumbered, and have approximately $1.8 million unencumbered.
10.05, fall student activity funds request.
Can you go back and approve that?
I'm sorry.
report?
Minor cap, I'm sorry.
Yes, that's okay.
I crossed it off.
I make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 10.05.
I too am excited about student
You
activity
still got another
funds.
one? Okay.
That is the account, just to refresh everyone's memory, that in the 2017 referendum sets 1 penny aside of our tax collections every year to fund requests from student groups. Our fall requests are typically smaller than the spring requests, but we met in November, and all of the groups presented their request. You have the spreadsheet available, and we did have one group come back and request $1,000 less. So with what the committee looked at and approved, we are looking at a total of $49,500. There's approximately $240,000 in the account currently, so leaving about a $40,000 reserve. That's $200,000 to give this year, so about 25% of that or so will go to these requests.
Any questions?
I have a question.
I'm sorry?
I just have a question. Tammy, with these groups, are they doing everything they can to also raise the monies for some of their activities?
Yes, they are required to do fundraising. It's my understanding that's how this fund originally started. And then during COVID, once we were coming back and the group started having activities again, we were pretty lenient with that because we knew it wasn't a time to be able to do large amounts of fundraising. But they are, and we always make them present what they're doing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I'd entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 10.06, fiscal year 2025 annual state budget reduction, the give back plan.
This is the item we talked about, I think, in October, where every year, $26 million is given back by all the districts and the charters proportionally based on units. The way this works is on July 1st, the funds all come out of our state operating dollars, which makes those essentially zero until we turn in an alternative reduction plan. For the district, it's about $1.75 million, and for Ennis, about $248,500. The plan that you have available on board docs gives back one assistant superintendent and one director position. We have historically, at least since I've been here, done that every year. We're giving back 3 assistant principals that are unneeded at this time, 9 teaching positions, 4.35 secretary positions, and 2 custodial positions. Those are all unfilled positions. And with the teacher shortage, we have excess teacher positions open. That leaves just over $10,000 in the balance that we are taking from the child safety awareness appropriation. The state determines what we can purchase from that, and we typically aren't able to spend all of that. So instead of reverting that later and losing additional funds, we're taking it out of here. Should our Department of Instruction determine that they need additional funds, we'll backfill that with operational dollars. But just trying to lower that risk of a reversion. And then for Howard T. Ennis, the entire give back comes out of their operational dollars. So I am seeking approval for this plan to turn into the state. It's due by December 31st.
Any questions?
Is this going to continue when the new governor takes office?
I believe we're in the second governor of which this exists, so I have not heard anything to the contrary.
This started when the state, Mr. Neal, I think, was in dire straits years ago.
Right.
And it's one of those things, the superintendents, as Dr. Owens will probably tell you, we asked that question about every year and did. And, you know, I guess, you know, your opportunity grant funding and things like that is probably where it comes back to the district, would be my guess. However, the state's not in bad shape, and really, this should end. There's no reason to continue giving money back.
I agree.
There is talk about school district finance reform, and so I believe if we're going to talk about that, the give back needs to be part of that conversation.
Any other questions? I would entertain a motion to accept the plan.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 10.07, final fiscal year 2025 budget for the Indian River School District.
Yes, so now that unit count was finalized in November, the budgets have been updated on the revenue side for final unit count numbers and the give back. Any line items for actual revenues received. So transportation and driver's ed, we made a couple of adjustments, some settlement funds in the other revenue line, and then some additional federal grants that we received. I did have to update the reserve fund supplement to $7.3 million. It was originally $3.4 million in preliminary. That is due to expenditure budget updates that were needed. Anything that flowed through from revenues was updated, additional vocational funding billing was updated based on the actual minutes generated as of September 30th. And then for current trends, there were updates to discretionary expenses for local salaries and substitute costs, legal services, district expenditures, district office expenditures, our district operations, which are our utilities, vehicles, and safety and security. I also updated the actual charter choice payments. Now that, again, through September 30th, we know where everybody was. So that increased about $109,000 over last year. And then the tuition operating budgets were updated for salaries for the assigned staff. So the total budget is $239.6 million, with the discretionary budget being $65.1 million.
Any questions? I would entertain a motion to accept the 2025 budget.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 10.08, final fiscal year 2025 budget for Howard T. Ennis.
Yes, same concept here. Howard T. Ennis's budget was updated for final unit count and give back. The tuition billing process that we bill to ourselves and other districts for the students that attend Ennis was finalized in November as well. So we updated for actual revenues there and removed the reserve fund supplement. The expenditure budgets were updated for anything that flowed through from revenues. And then also, same as the district side, the vocational funding, and then some discretionary expenses based on the current trend. So state and local salaries were updated, indirect cost and fleet vehicles. So Howard T. Ennis is looking at a total budget of $20.9 million.
Any questions? I'd entertain a motion to accept a budget.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Communications, we have no requests. We're moving on to 12, this personnel agenda. So 12.01, personnel agenda for December the 16th, 2024.
Make a motion, we approve the personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 12.02, personnel addendum for December 16th, 2024. I would entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 12.03, contractual agenda for December 16th, 2024. I'd entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 12.04, this is the notification of retirements. 12.05, teacher contract ratification. I would entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 12.06, secretary contract ratification. I would entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 12.07, paraprofessional contract ratification. I would entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. Public comment, 13.01. We don't have anybody signed up at this time, but if there's anyone in the audience that would like to come forth and speak, you may do so at this time. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.